Hey there everyone, welcome back to Arcana Check. Now today we are doing our very first D&D terrain build on the channel, and the basics of this are simple. We want to start off with some terrain to use for our tabletop games such as Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or any wargaming type thing like Warhammer, etc. So some of the easiest pieces of terrain to start with, in my opinion, are just little pieces of scatter terrain. These are small pieces that are movable. They can go wherever you want them to on the table, and they provide cover or partial cover. So today we are going to be doing things like taking scraps of this XPS foam and turning them in to little building ruins. So the basics that you are going to need for this, and these are the absolute basic materials that you are going to want, are going to be just some sort of scraps of XPS foam. If they are pre-cut at least two 90-degree angles, it makes your life a whole lot easier. You can start off with the full sheets. I have right beside me most of a 4x8 sheet of half-inch XPS foam. But I've got plenty of scraps lying around, so I'm going to use those because you can never, you can always use what you got. And we're going to be breaking these down into individual bricks. And then we're going to be constructing our ruins from those to give a very kind of natural, authentic feel to these ruins. So the XPS foam I have here, this is from Menards, which is, I don't know if it's national in the U.S., but it's definitely regional to the Midwest. Type of hardware store. You can get it at Lowe's, you can get it at Home Depot, you can get it at a lot of Ace or True Value hardware stores. But this is the pink stuff. It's a little less springy than the blue stuff that you get at Lowe's. I prefer this over theirs generally every day, but this is half-inch thick, and that's going to be important because that's going to be one of our key measurements. The other things you're going to need are some chipboard. This is medium weight chipboard. This is the same stuff you would find on the back of a pad of paper, a sketchbook sort of thing. You can buy these in bulk, but this was just a scrap piece that I had from my classroom. One of our secretaries gives me tons of scrap pieces of chipboard all the time, which is great because I've yet to have to buy any because I've always got some being an art teacher. You're also going to want a little box cutter knife. This is the kind that extends and breaks off. These are amazing. They're super cheap, and they're probably the tool that gets used the most. Also, a pen. This is just a cheap ballpoint pen. Something to measure with. I like to use a square just because it helps me get those right angles a lot easier, a lot faster. And then to attach our pieces together, you're going to want to either use some PVA glue. This is the Elmer's Glue All, not the school glue. The school glue is a little too weak. You could use this. You could use some tacky glue, or you could use hot glue. And I've used hot glue in the past. It's a lot faster. It lets you have things be secure as you're building, but you've got to wipe a lot of that molten glue away with your fingertips, so it burns a little bit. But those are the basics of this, so let's get crafting. To begin, we want to take our square or a ruler and measure about 1/4 of an inch away from the hot wire on the proxon. We can then line our sled into place and lock it there. We will then take the half-inch XPS foam and run it through the hot wire, cutting 1/4 inch strips. Next, we want to stack these strips side by side and run them through the hot wire sideways, still using the 1/4 inch spacing. This is going to cut the foam into 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 1/2 inch bricks, which is exactly the size we want. Then we just repeat this process through more scrap pieces of foam until we've got a bunch of bricks. It never hurts to have more than you think you're going to need. When you make the bricks with the prox on, or you're cutting them with a box cutter, you're left with a bunch of crisp, clean edges. It's not very brick-like. To make these look more like bricks, we need to add some stone texture to these. Now, an easy way to add stone texture is to tumble the bricks. So take your foam pieces and place them into a container with some stones. I like to use rough stones of varying sizes, so the texture is even more random. Once you have this all together, put the lid on and start shaking. You can check your bricks and stop shaking when the bricks are to your liking. Now we need to make some bases for our ruins to sit on. Take some chipboard and a ruler or a square and begin measuring out shapes for some walls. I like to make the bases 1 inch wide so that it fits within the movement scale of 5 feet per inch that's used in Dungeons & Dragons. For this tutorial, I'm making a straight 2 inch by 1 inch base and an L-shaped base with sides that are 3 inches long. Once you cut these out, you can round off the corners for a more natural look, but this isn't necessary, it's just a personal choice. Now we want to start attaching the bricks to the bases. I'm using PVA glue for this. First, we want to lay a row of bricks lengthwise on the base, leaving an even space on each side. On the second level, stagger the bricks so that the edge of a second level brick is at about the halfway point of a first level brick. Do the same thing on the third level. I like to leave the edges of the wall uneven to give it the look of a crumbling ruin. I switched to using the glue in a paint palette and applying it with a brush. because my glue bottle exploded on me. For the L-shaped wall, start everything out the same, laying down a row lengthwise on your base. In the corner, simply turn your bricks to face the length of the new side. Starting with the second layer, you can make your ruins look like they were once part of a larger building. The first wall of these ruins is going to be built like a normal brick wall with alternating bricks. On the second wall, though, I'm only going to place a single brick on either side of the wall. On the third layer, I cut the bricks in half and line them up with the inside edges of the second layer bricks. The fourth layer is a full brick, the fifth layer is a half brick, and the sixth layer is once again a full brick. On this sixth layer, we're going to create the top of a window. On the bricks that cross the open space, you want to put the glue on the sides of the bricks as opposed to the bottoms. Now, I ran into trouble with the bricks sagging and just not wanting to stay in place. I think the PVA glue that I used didn't have the sticking power I needed. To get around this, I placed pins through either side of this layer to keep them in place. It became a bit tricky to get everything lined up though. Once you have this put back into place, add 2 more layers to finish off the height of a 1-story building. Lastly, add a couple of bricks and half bricks on the base to add rubble to the wall. Now leave the glue to dry overnight. I want to make the bases fit in with the look of the ruins, so I'm going to add some rough texture to them. This can be done easily just by taking some PVA glue and brushing it on the bases. Then take some construction sand and pour this straight onto the glue. If there are some slightly larger stones in the sand, it will look even better. Then we just let this dry. Before I seal the ruins, I'm going to place some poster tack on the bottom of each piece and stick it to some wax paper just to keep them in place while painting. In order to seal the ruins, I'm going to use Mod Podge mixed with black acrylic paint. All you need to do is simply paint the black Mod Podge on all surfaces of the ruins and bases. Make sure to get into all the cracks of the bricks. This will not only prime the ruins in black, but it will also strengthen the walls thanks to the Mod Podge. To start painting the ruins, I'm using some dark gray paint by Craftsmart. This is the brand of craft paint made by Michaels. With the first layer of paint, you're going to coat the surface pretty heavily, about 90% coverage. If little bits of the black don't get covered, this is actually a good thing. It will help add some depth and shadow to the piece.
second coat is only going to go on the bases. I'm using Craftsmart Golden Brown and I'm applying about 60% coverage. This will warm up the tone of the ground and make it look subtly different from the walls. For the third coat, I'm using Medium Gray by Craftsmart, and I've switched to a soft brush that is great for dry brushing. I like to spread the paint out thin on the wax paper and get as little as I can on the brush. We're dry brushing this layer on, so we want the previous layers to still show through. Think about 30 to 40% coverage. Paint all the bricks, but don't try to cover them in paint. Do the same thing on the bases. We'll do another dry brush run for the fourth coat, but this time with Vanilla by Craftsmart. We want even less paint on the bricks this time, maybe a 5 to 10% coverage. Pay more attention to the edges and corners of the exposed bricks rather than the faces. And this time we won't add paint to the bases. To finish off the paint job, I'm adding a coat of black wash to the surface of everything. I use the wash detailed by Jeremy over at Black Magic Craft. Check out the link to his video in my description if you want to learn how to make it yourself. I'm using a spray bottle to give an uneven, more natural look to the bricks. Once you're happy with the wash, let your ruins dry and then seal them with the spray sealant of your choice.
And there you have it, guys. Some completed pieces of scatter terrain. These are really basic sorts of things, you know, but they give a nice little touch, and it gives your players a lot more option as opposed to just going out there and fighting the bad guys. They can now hide and they can strategize. They can do some more interesting things. Now, with this build, there are some changes that I would probably make. I was not a big fan of how the PVA glue by itself was holding up. I had to pin a couple places. So I would either go straight with the tacky glue, which holds a little better, or I would go back to the hot glue method and just deal with some calloused fingers. But that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Until next week, I'll see you guys later. Bye.